What is going on, guys? DBG here, and in this video we are going to be talking about the MyTEAM Limited game mode. What the best team you should run with is in order to get an easy ring. So lads, if you guys have seen my team, the team that I am running right now, ooh, somebody sold. And it's a Clams Badger unsold. That's disappointing. Because I didn't know who I had up. I was like, oh, maybe I have a little bit empty. But this is basically a team that I was running with. Oh yes. Oh yes, yes, lads. Giannis becomes a demon. I told you guys, and he gets some gold badges as well. That's actually unreal. Told you guys, buy the heat check cards instead of the current 21. I actually made a profit getting heat check Giannis. So, ooh, this card here could be a beast. But yeah, this is basically the team I'm running with. The requirements that you need are rubies, 2 amethyst and higher cards. Heat check players are allowed. No free agent cards are allowed. So, first of all, apart from like heat check Giannis or like heat check Steph, I'm guessing, is Steph have? If he's on fire, then maybe he's worth considering. Nah. Apart from heat check Giannis, none of them are worth considering. So we are going to now move over to 2KDB. So we are going to make this squad. So the point guard position is the most obvious one. So also, for some reason, like, this is the weirdest thing ever. So you need fill your line with the fastest players. And if you go to the point guards, and let's just go Ruby. So you can't use Markelle Fultz, despite the fact that he's got 89 speed, which is a really, really weird one. But if you go to point guards limited, I think Charlie Ward has got lower. No, he's at 90. Okay, it's actually, I get it. You need 90. You need different speed per each position. I get it now. Initially, I was like, but like, he's at 89 speed, and I'm using Brian Russell, who's got 88 speed. That doesn't make sense. But like, now I get it why you can't use Fultz. But yeah. So this is the team that I have been running with. And I don't believe it's the best team you can get. I really don't believe it's the best team you can get. So, first of all, let's look at Ruby point guards. And then sort by limited. So, let's have a look at Rubies. This is 2KDB. It's the best thing ever. Like, you can legitimately see all of the cards that are eligible. So, it's all of these guys right here. So, it's Chris Paul, Jar Jack, Patty Mills, Strickland, Spud Webb, Terry Rozier, Tony Roten, Dana Barros. So, we're going to make the all Ruby team first. Just because you obviously can get the 2 amethyst or higher players. I'm gonna show you guys a full Ruby team that you can get and can be very, very good. Then we're gonna go over the better players. So obviously Tony Roten and Jack. I actually personally think it's probably better to Jar Jack's better than Tony Roten. So Jack. And if you have one thing I will always say, well, I said it last week. If you do what I did, it was smart. Like, have an amethyst Jar Jack and a Jar Jack Ruby card. Some people are saying just don't evo the card. That's ridiculous. He's 1k MT. Just buy the Ruby and sit them in your auction house. And then switch them out when you need them for other weeks in Limited. Because the amethyst Jar Jack's way better than the Ruby Jar Jack. But Roten is definitely the next best. Followed probably by CP3, if you guys can't get them. Other guys that are not bad. Dana Barros is not bad. This card here is not bad. Because he's got a 95 3 ball, he's got good speed, and he's got gold range extender. He is not actually that bad, especially if you're on next gen. His release is just a little bit slow. I've used him on next gen. Base 28, it's not the same. It's really, really good on current gen. So they're the guys that I would. These are the 2 by far that are the best. Okay, let's go 2 guards. So let's go Ruby and Sapphire 2 guards that are eligible. There are not many of them. So Eric Gordon, Amon Shumpert, Rex Shatton, Wesley Matthews. Another person that's not bad to play a point guard is Shumpert if you have him. 2 Mitchells, Jordan Clarkson, and Ronnie Brewer. Okay, so the obvious choice right here is, if you have him, Wesley Matthews. He's by far the best. And then the next player to choose is probably, I mean, Ronnie Brewer's Ruby card. If you did the Ronnie Brewer thing where you have a Ronnie Brewer Amethyst and then a Ronnie Brewer Sapphire and Ruby sitting in your auction house. But Ronnie Brewer is barely an upgrade from Sapphire to Ruby. So yeah, these 2 guys. Small forwards, you're looking at Andrew Wiggins, Brian Russell, Jonathan Isaac, Gerald Green, Ben Simmons, and a couple of these lower tier guys. Matt Barnes has been usable in like every week of Limited. So don't buy him as prices high. If he's like 1,500, go buy him. He's usable in like every week of Limited. But here, the obvious one is Brian Russell. And like he's a must use in this type squad. And then Isaac, but I would use Isaac at power forward. He's another like must use player. I mean, like the next best of these players is probably Wiggins. Or you could do this. Move him to the 3. Play Eric Gordon, who's better than Wiggins. Or Eric Gordon or Rex Chapman. And then play Ronnie Brewer here at the 3. That's kind of that sorted. Power forwards, there's really not many of them. Like you're looking at Davis Bertans, who's a shooter. Davis Bertans is a real shooter. And then you go down into here, you get yourself your Jeff Greens, and you also have your Jabari Parkers of the world. So the first player, obviously, if you can afford him, is Jonathan Isaac. Like no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. And the next player, it all depends on what you want. If you want a range extended shooter, go get yourself Bertans. If you want a just kind of all-around offensive player, get yourself Jabari Parker. If you want a defensive player, go get yourself Jared Jeffries. Or if you want a like kind of faster player, get yourself Jeff Green. Personally, I probably would go with Jeff Green here. But it's unlikely that, say, Jeff Green makes the final squad. And the center position is a really weak one, by the way. The center position is a really, really weak one. So, like, if you're looking at power forwards and centers that can play at that position, or let's just go include secondary centers. You got Thon. Thon Maker, no-brainer. No-brainer. I don't have him in my squad, but he got really, really expensive, and I don't necessarily need him. So, but Thon Maker, a no-brainer. And then, for me, Giannis Antetokounmpo, if you can get him. Like, if you can get heat check Giannis at a 98 overall right now, he is an absolute no-brainer to get. But as well as that, there's some okay. Like, Dino's alright, Dikembe's alright, Whiteside's basically Dikembe. Cat's underrated. Cat is really underrated, by the way. But I would definitely play one of your main dudes as a center, by the way. I would definitely play one of your higher overalls as a big man, because there's not that many good ones. But let's just throw in Cat, because not that many people are going to use him, and I actually think he's really, really underrated, especially if he's on next gen. On current gen, probably Mutombo. Actually, no. Let's just make this for current gen. Let's go to Kembe. I misspelled Mutombo. There we go. So if we're looking at Ruby cards or below, this is probably the ideal lineup that I would make if I were you guys. So the luxury players that you should add in. Okay, so first of all, if you guys have John Havlicek on current gen, I personally believe he's one of the best players in the game. John Havlicek, obviously key. You guys know some of the best players like LeBron James. Anthony Davis is a really big one, by the way. Like, if you have Anthony Davis, you're going to win most of your games. Because as you guys can see, Thon Maker, Dikembe Mutombo, like, at least the rest of these guys here can, apart from maybe with Jeff Green, and Jeff Green's not the worst defender. At least the rest of these guys here, apart from Eric Gordon, can play some like semblance of defense. Like, you got gold clamps, gold clamps, gold clamps, gold clamps in your starting 5. Off the bench, you got gold clamps on Ronnie Brewer. You got bronze clamps on Jeff Green. You got gold clamps on Roden, and Eric Gordon's just gonna try to guard the cone. So if you can manage to go get yourself an Anthony Davis card, he is legitimately going to change everything. Like, he could win. He's going to win a lot of games by himself. Like, when I was playing Limited, the only player I've ever been really worried about is people at that center position. So, guys to run at that center position. And I think there are 5 guys that can dominate against guys that aren't running centers. Like, the center position is the most important position this week in Limited, because you can win through just that. Anthony Davis, the dinosaur, Dino Raja. If you're on more of a budget, he's a very good player. Kevin McHale. If you have McHale, he's elite. Or DeMarcus Cousins. They're fantastic. And I forgot Hakeem Olajuwon. Whichever, if you have any of those guys in your whole squad, unless you've got a heat check Giannis, use one of those, because they will dominate. And I'm telling you, if you are using, for example, Steph Curry and Dwayne Wade as your 2 guys, like Jared Jack and Roden, can kind of guard those guys, you better believe you're running one of these 5 centers and your opponent's running Thon Maker, you just have to 5 out and run by him for the whole game. You've won. So it is a massive, massive deal making sure you have that center position shored up, because that center position is what's probably going to be the making or breaking of your team. Other guys, obviously, that you can run at this position, Weber, and you can also run Blake Griffin. Just any of the centers that can just rim run. I wouldn't advise someone like a Kemp because that's just dumb. It's dumb using Amethyst at this stage. But any of those guys are perfect. So let's just throw in who's the cheapest of them all. Dino Raja. Dino's probably the cheapest of them all, of all the elite centers, because this is a game where it was a thing last year. If you guys don't know, if you knew what you were doing last year, you could basically have a game won, just based on who your opponent ran at center. If you ran like a Thon, actually it wasn't even Thon, if you ran Marvin Bagley at center last year, and your opponent ran anybody, any budget center other than Marvin Bagley, if they ran like a Thon Maker, a LaMarcus Aldridge or anything, you literally just have to 5 out and run by them, and you won every single game. And that's the case with this weekend limited. Obviously, if they play zone, they play zone. But that's why all 5 of the centers I have suggested, or all 7, can get range extender as well, and just run through. You can run through them. So this weekend, running through the center is probably the most important position, because there are a lot of really good Ruby. There are a lot of really good Ruby wings. Like Brian Russell's fantastic. Like you could use Brian Russell in the competitive setting, and he would hold his own. Wesley Matthews would struggle a little bit, but defensively he would hold his own in the competitive setting. You can use Ronnie Brewer in a competitive setting, and I think he'd hold his own. You can use Roten or Jared Jack, and they can hold their own. They're not going to be good per se, but they can hold their own. Jeff Green probably is a weak link, but the center positions, there are no Ruby or lower centers that you can use and hold your own in a competitive setting. So the center position definitely is one to focus on. And then after you've shored up the center, get someone who you can score with every time. So for me, it's Rudy Fernandez. So I would suggest someone that can play at the 2 or the 3, because at the big kind, or 2 or 3, or a power forward actually. For me, you got Eric Gordon there for defense, but if you're on current gen, you only need like 3 wing rotation. You don't need a 4 when you don't need to go straight to your bench lineup. But like a power forward could be nice, or even somebody that you can swap in with a Dino Raja, a power forward / center. So somebody like a Chris Webber, a Blake Griffin could be very, very nice. Depending on your playstyle. That's if you're comfortable with your guards. But if you're not comfortable with scoring with these guards and you don't want to run through a center, the rest of these guys are fine. I probably would put Thon in instead of the Kembe, especially if you're on next gen. But for me, I would get rid of Eric Gordon, move Wes Matthews to the bench. As much as I like Wes Matthews, I would move him to the bench. And then at the 2 guard / 3 position, I'd look at one of those elite scorers. I would look at one of your top tier players, like your LeBron Jameses, your John Havliceks. If you're at that level, one of those guys, I would stray away from the likes of Gary Payton, because these guys are like really good competitive players, but they're not guys that can put up a whole bunch of points in a limited setting against rubies. So you gotta look at what you're given. Like a Dame Lillard could be a really nice player. Even running Dame at the 2 in this type of setting could be fantastic. I think a Baron Davis could work really, really well, because he can curry, he can shoot from deep, and he can dunk. Yeah, he's not going to get you Showtime, but trust me, in MyTEAM Limited, Showtime, Heart Crusher are not going to be the difference to win the game of Ruby versus Ruby. Like if you've got a Jack Marin, if you've got the Lawyer, he's fantastic. Again, I've been using Rudy Fernandez just because I like his release. One player I wouldn't suggest using, which is a player that I've been using, is like an Antoine Jameson. Like, do not use like a Cone. Do not use a spot-up shooter, because that is the dumbest thing you can do, honestly. Honestly, that's the dumbest thing that you can do. Like, even someone like him would be somewhat usable, like a Jameer Nelson. But I would not use a Cone. Like, for example, I wouldn't use somebody that you don't feel like you can score 50 points a game with. And, like, I've been using Jameson. The only reason I use Jameson in my squad is because I'm really, really comfortable with Jared Jack. Like, Jared Jack is one of my favorite players in this game. Like, he's averaging 14.2 points per game through 26 games. A lot of them happen TT offline. But when I play online, I do score a hell of a lot of them. Like, yeah, I use Jared Jack Amethyst, but like Jared Jack's literally in my main squad. I'm so comfortable with him that I can get away with using a Cone. But I wouldn't advise that for anybody else. Unless you're very confident that Jared Jack is going to be your main option off the bench, I wouldn't really do that. But just whoever you're comfortable scoring 50 game with. Even someone like a Steph Curry. Like, yeah, a lot of people don't talk about Steph Curry anymore, but he is a perfect guy to use in this because he's tough to guard. He is very tough to guard, especially with a Ruby. And how many Ruby guys, like most people that play against Steph Curry don't guard him with point guards. How many Ruby point guards are going to be able to guard a Steph Curry? Or if you put Steph Curry at the 2. If you put Steph at the 2, start Tony Roten at the 1. Use Jared Jack off your bench. How many guys are going to be able to guard Steph Curry at that Ruby tier? Maybe Brian Russell, that's about it. Someone like him suits. But I'm going to say, if you're on current gen, actually, and you're on a budget, this isn't a bad option. Do not use them on next gen, though. I made that mistake, and it came back to haunt me. If you're on a budget, Jeff Petrie is fantastic. But I'm going to say mid-tier card. Let me just say 50k MT as my mid-tier. The player that I would just in general suggest to use as a pure mid-tier player, because I know I'm going to guess most people have 50k to spend on an outstanding player. Probably Rudy Fernandez. Because he can dunk on everybody. He's got that hot showtime if you want it. He's also got really great release, range extender, has got perfect sigs for next gen. He is he's like going to be a good player the rest of the year. He's not going to be a competitive level player, but he's going to be a good player the rest of the year. So you can never go wrong with Rudy Fernandez. So a team that looks something like this, you're going to have a lot of success with. You're really going to have a lot of success with. There might be a few players. Obviously, I put Dino and Rudy Fernandez in there purely because they are like more budget options. Like if you in reality want the best possible team, go put in Anthony Davis, and go put in at the 2-guard position, go put in I don't know, Havlicek, Tracy McGrady. If you do have these players, just run these guys. It's obviously going to be better. I just picked budget versions of each of them. So anyway, yeah, that is pretty much it. This is the best team this week for My Team Limited. That's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.